Hey fam, how are you all today? I am being guided just to hop right into this. So I just want to first of all say, um, I hope you all have just genuinely had the most wonderful summer. I know we've been going through a lot of shifts and changes. Um, there's even been, confusion and there's been a lot energetically going on, and I know that that can be quite disruptive. It has been for me. It's created a lot of pressure, um, which thankfully um, I can use and turn into lessons. So I guess that's sort of what I want to talk about for the most part is that this is Earth School. And today I was on a walk in the park with my dog, like we do all the time. And I just started noticing more and more patterns coming out. I parked somewhere different, we walked on different trails. I still saw the same people exhibiting the same behavior. And it got me thinking a lot about karmic patterns and the karmic patterns in my life and what I have maybe been avoiding or putting off, um, or just, maybe they haven't come to the surface yet, or, awareness hasn't been brought to them. So, what I really want to touch on though is the why of that, why the avoidance. So I know for me personally, I have a tendency to establish more unhealthy patterns or attachments, or I can. That has been something that I've been working on um, through shadow work and introspection and diving deep. Um, but it's really, I think, it's this guilt and shame, these low vibrational states of being that are absolutely generational in my family. Um, those things keep coming up, and they stop me from actually going through the, pardon my French, shit, going through the poop, right? To get to the other side. I will often choose to escape, deny, ignore, sweep under the rug. Even when I think I've gotten out of those patterns, I'm recognizing I still do it. So I'm going to start there with escapism and how our addictive patterns, while getting those handled, um, it's not really where, that's just the very beginning, right? I call that stabilization. When you can remove the substance or remove the mindset, remove the limiting belief, remove the substance, the addiction, whatever it is. Because every human being has issues with this. There's no escaping it. It just looks different for everybody. I read a message today, somebody talking about how imposter syndrome was their addiction. And I had the biggest aha moment, like, because I struggle with that so much and it is so limiting. Oh my goodness. And at the very bottom, like the very base of that is a lack of belief in self. And belief is faith, right? A lack of faith in self. It blew my mind. So when I say addictions, what I really mean is like an unhealthy attachment to something. And that can be anything. Think outside the box on that one. Only you know what's going to resonate for you. But getting stabilized just means bringing awareness to what that is and walking out of it. Once we can eliminate or separate from the actual unhealthy attachment, then the real work starts, right? Because that attachment didn't come about by itself. That attachment we were actually using as a coping mechanism, as unhealthy as it might be, it's a way that we've learned how to cope. So what do the foundationally, there's got to be a wound there, right? That causes us to need to cope, right? The wound that from that wound sprouts uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable situations, um, and nobody wants to feel uncomfortable, right? So then the escapism happens, the numbing, the distracting, whatever that is that we all do. So bringing our awareness, again, it's important that we stabilize. It's important that we maybe not be drinking when we try and do our healing work and are bringing attention to the wounding, right? That doesn't make much sense, and we don't. It's not as efficient, right? So if we get to a place where we, even just for 3 days, right, we can just take the time off, give ourselves 3 days to be uncomfortable. And then we can, I'm telling you, 3 days is like the magic number. Then we can, and I'll create another video going into how we might stabilize, but for now I'm just going to do an overview. But then we can actually start to bring our awareness to what wounds we ourselves are holding and walking around with that are creating these patterns. We don't even need to necessarily understand how generationally this all came about. That's another way of distracting ourselves, actually. It can be, to dive down those rabbit holes. When we can find the wounding, whether, most times, oftentimes, it's childhood that it thank you, Freud. But it is these childhood patterns that come from generations of these patterns just being repeated, right? Because our parents, honestly, or whoever raised us, or whoever our role models were, they didn't come into this dimension having that wounding and having those patterns. It starts way back. So let's take it back to childhood, for example. The process is really bringing awareness, bringing your attention to, and doing it from the most non-judgmental place that you possibly can. And that takes practice. There is an ebb and a flow to that as well. So it might take 20 years to really get some understanding going on within self of why we do certain things or behave certain ways, or have certain patterns. So it's very important to include this non-dual way of being or thinking when we're doing this work. Super important. And it's difficult, especially when all you know is judging yourself, and to be self-critical. It's, as so many of us, that's our existence. Maybe a great place to start for a lot of you is just practicing being non-judgmental, being that observer, which meditation helps a lot with. Again, this is just an overview. So anyway, this is a lifelong process, okay, because it is about progress and not perfection. Perfection is an illusion. If you constantly chase it, you will constantly be disappointed. It's not obtainable. Anyone who, from the outside, looking at anyone who appears to be perfect, please know that they're not, and please know that's a mask. Please know that that is a mask. Every human has dark and light within them, and many of us are walking around with their dark and their light very unbalanced. The goal here is to find balance within self. So I've touched a little bit on the addiction part of things, the unhealthy attachment part of things that leads to suffering, correct? Another thing that is a huge distraction is when we look outside of self, for our validation, for our numbing, for our distractions, for our joy, for our contentment. When we're always looking outside of self, it opens the door wide open for comparisons. And then we get stuck in that cycle, that karmic negative cycle of unhealthy attachment, right? It's an addiction in itself to compare oneself to something else, to someone else, to someone else's situation, whatever that may be, how much money that person has. compared to how poor you are, or whatever negative way you're speaking to yourself, right? At the end of the day, we are all source energy. We have agreed to come here as a separate ray of source for soul refinement. Okay? That's all that we're here for. This is Earth School. Full circle here. So these comparisons and things being good and bad and this black and white thinking is truly an illusion, and it's meant to get you stuck. It's really meant to get you stuck. If you can see past it and start to reshape and reframe how you think about these things in terms of everything being a lesson, I think it'll make things a lot easier. Also, failure is an illusion. I hate to break it to you. Actually, I love to break it to you. Failure is an absolute illusion. There is no such thing as failure. Never has been, never will be. Again, we are here to learn lessons. If you're not making mistakes, if you're not, according to this, how we phrase things down here, if you're not making those mistakes, you're doing something wrong. You're not doing your job. So, somebody just slammed the door. I take that as confirmation. 100%. So anyhow, so we come here and it's this continual, again, because it's progress and not perfection, it's this continual sort of leveling up. I guess that's how you can look at it. It's how I look at it sometimes. Not up necessarily, but a continual like expansion, right? Expansion of my consciousness and of my understanding of things. So, okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So we're here and we are learning our lessons. We're here at Earth School. We are faced with all of these distractions because even though we're all the same, we're all from one source, we are absolutely here with a different soul expression to learn different lessons, right? So that source can be refining itself many times all at once, as opposed to doing it one soul at a time. You see what I'm saying? So, anyway, so that's why it's very important to stay in your lane, because your unique path is your agreement to source and to all of us, as to how you're going to refine yourself this time around, the lessons that you're going to learn this time around. I hope this is making sense. I really do. I apologize for being a bit all over the place. But I need to get this out, because if I don't, it's going to continue to keep me up and I'll continue to think about it. So I think that these are all really important things to recognize. So the staying in your lane part is the really difficult part for all of us, because we look around and because we have been told from day one that certain things are good and certain things are bad. When we look at our neighbor, and our neighbor just bought a brand new Corvette, and we're driving a 1993 Honda Accord, right, that's rusted all over, it's hard not to compare. But the goal really in learning how to be less judgmental, or to be more non-dual in your approach, in your mental approach to things, is to recognize that like neither is good nor bad. Okay, that neighbor has a brand new car, but that neighbor has different lessons to learn, right? And I think this is a huge pitfall, because then this is where the comparisons can open the door for spirits like envy and spirits like greed. Honestly, it opens the door for these things to come in. And when we allow those vibrational states to sort of sit within us and we become that, then we potentially we behave in petty ways, and it's very tedious. when all the while the real lesson is just to stay in your lane and to be happy or just detached in all. Like, you don't have to have an opinion at all about it, really. I think that's a great place to be if you can get there. Is to just not have an outside opinion, or not have an opinion on outside things, right? Things outside of self, right? But that is a major pitfall that I am seeing in my very own neighborhood every single day. I see these comparisons being made between these lovely souls, and it's stopping them from actually growing their own soul, like their own, it's stopping their expansion. They just get stuck in the comparison part of it, never really learning that an illusion. Um, but the more we heal, grow, and evolve, the more we gain spiritual sight and discernment. Um, and people will start to compare themselves to you because you have discernment, because you are leading with more light than you are shadow. And that's another thing that kind of comes back into imposter syndrome as well, right? Um, anyhow, so here on Earth School, I guess the whole point of this really is the staying in your lane part as much as you possibly can, and to bring about a non-judgmental or non-dual way of being and thinking within self, right? So, like, that's really key. That's really, really, really important to this whole life thing. I'd love to hear some comments on how you all view this and how you feel about this from a very non-dual, non-secular place. Because I'm really here talking to the every soul, because I'm talking to myself, right? When I look at my neighbor, I see myself, because we all are source. And I see myself having a different experience to learn different lessons, right? And I am appreciative of that. It's been very difficult for me to not be frustrated when I see this beautiful soul here to have these great experiences and learn these lessons, only looking outside of themselves to find the answers. And sometimes letting that spirit of envy and greed and hate and resentment creep in, and then seeing these beautiful souls live from these very low vibrational places, and I don't think many times realizing that's what's going on, and then wondering why they can't find contentment or happiness that's lasting. And it's because they're putting their attention in the wrong place, really. I know for me personally, one of the things I really wanted to learn in coming to this plane, I wanted to learn about finding balance, right? Because when I'm not here, all I know is balance and harmony. That's all I know in my energetic state. And so then I choose to come here because Earth, this plane, this 3D place, is so dense that we are forced to have a separate experience from each other, right? We end up being separate, which means then we get the ego. The ego is created, and the ego is very necessary because, again, we come here to learn our lessons, right? We can't all be doing the same thing and be like having the same experiences all the time. That would be so boring. But so I come here because it's dense, right? And because it's so dense, there's pain here. We have all the emotions, but there's pain specifically is what I'm going to talk about. So we come here for the pain, right? Because pain is actually literally gold. We need the pain to learn the lesson. If we don't have the pain, there is no lesson learned, right? Just like coal needs pressure applied to become a diamond, right? And we're here for soul refinement, right? So we need the pressure, we need the density, and we do need our ego. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day, but the ego definitely has a place in everyone's life. When we talk about ego death, that is a tempering of your ego. Again, in order to refine your soul, you must temper your ego. But I think really the most important thing here, you all, is that pain and the way that we look at pain on this planet now, at this day and age, is very unhealthy. It creates this illusion of needing to escape or to numb ourselves all of the time. Like, absolutely an illusion. I'm not saying that you go out looking for pain or inviting it or making super uncalculated risks all the time. What I'm saying is when you yourself are opened to a painful situation, it's sitting in that discomfort that is going to apply the pressure, that's going to smooth you out, round you out, make you more well-rounded, and create expansion of consciousness and expansion in your life in general. I don't even claim these words or this wisdom. This is just coming through me from source and from my guides. They really wanted to get this message out about pain being so crucial, and if we can find a way to change our perspective about it, I think that's where we can eliminate so much of this unhealthy attachment and addictions, right? Because that's what we're going to for the distraction and like the numbing and the escaping, right? But if we can learn to look at this pain as a gift, it actually it's been able to truly help me get through some great tragedies, horrific things in life. Not, again, this is an ebb and a flow. My first few attempts were not great, always going towards the escape, always going towards the distraction. But over time, by allowing these ebbs and flows to come in and out, and from learning just a little bit at a time, I've been able to stabilize myself quickly. Even if I'm still going towards these substances or, ways of being and thinking that are not great for me, I've been able to recognize more quickly and do back out of it. Consciously bringing my awareness and my attention to the fact that the pain is gold. Pain is needed. Pain is why I came here to begin with. That's how we are refining our souls when we're here. So again, don't go looking for it, but I certainly would caution against avoiding that pain in your life. Those are the nuggets. Start turning over your own rocks. You're going to be quite surprised at your own strength when you start to view pain from this perspective and view hard times in life and the valleys of your life. When you start to view them as gifts, it is a game changer. It really is. And folks, I'm not here to talk about religion or spirituality necessarily. I am a spiritual being having a human experience right now, as are you. But I want to lay this out very plainly so that every soul can understand what the F I'm talking about. So I think that's all I have for now. I appreciate it if you've made it this far. I just appreciate you hearing me out, and I hope that I didn't bore you to death, and I hope that something that I said offered you some sort of comfort or maybe an aha moment. And if not, that's okay. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until next time,